Hey everyone, today is the 6th of February 2024. Welcome again to a short video presentation courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. In today's video, I want to introduce you and bring you up to speed on the mathematics that underpin the square of 9 and Gann fan lines. And these were two developments courtesy of W.D. Gann back in the 1930s, 1940s. We hear about them, and a lot of times we will see them provided in the market software that we are using. And I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the mathematics that underpin them. And that way you can verify that your software is correctly applying these things to any chart that you choose to study. So here is an example of the square of 9. It's basically a square, and it's 9 boxes wide by 9 boxes tall. And in this particular square of 9, the starting point in the middle is 1. And if you move off to the left, you'll see that the next value is 2. And if you move up, the next value is 3. And if you move over, the next value is 4, and 5, and 6, and 7. So you see what I'm doing? From that starting point in the center, I'm going clockwise, and I'm just slowly working my way out farther and farther into the square. And eventually, if I keep doing that, I will come to the end of the square down here at the 81 level. So at the surface, it looks very simple. You're probably saying, well, this is easy. From that starting point of 1, you just add 1. That gives you 2. And then you add 1. That gives you 3. And 3 plus 1 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5, and so on and so on. Yes, you're correct, but let me show you the mathematics of how this all unfolds. And to do that, I'm going to use this value of 5 as a starting point, and I'm going to show you the mathematics behind it. So, if 5 is the starting point, you take the square root of 5, and any 4-function basic calculator is going to have a square root function key on it. And so the square root of 5 is 2.236. I take 2.236 and I add to that 0.25. That's going to give me 2.486. I take 2.486 and I square it. I multiply it by itself. And any 4-function calculator will have a key on it to allow you to take a number and square the number. So 2.486 squared is 6.18. In round figures, let's call it 6. So that is how I get from 5 to 6. How do I get from 6 then to the next level, which is 7? Very simple. I take the square root of 6, 2.449. To that, I'm adding 0.25. That gives me 2.699. I'm going to take 2.699, I'm going to square it. That gives me 7.28. In round figures, let's call it 7. Now, I want to show you one more thing on this chart. If 5 is our point of interest where we're starting, notice that by going clockwise, I go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and I will eventually end up here at 18. Notice what I've done. I've gone clockwise 1 revolution, 360 degrees around, and that brings me then to the value of 18. So by traveling around the square 360 degrees, I have effectively squared the circle. How did I get then mathematically from 5 to 18? Square root of 5, as we said, is 2.236. Take that value and we're going to add 2. So 2.236 plus 2 is 4.236. 4.236 squared is 17.94. round figures, let's call it 18. So by using the value of 2, that denotes one full trip around 360 degrees. If I was using the value of 1, that would be 180 degrees. If I'm using the value of 0.5, that's 90 degrees. And if I'm using the value of 0.25, that's 45 degrees. That right there, in a nutshell, is the mathematics that underpin the square of 9. Now we can take this one step further. Let's suppose we have a price chart, and on the price chart we identify a critical low point or perhaps a critical high point where the trend changes. We can actually plot some Gann fan lines over top of that chart. And we can plot a total of 8 45-degree incremental moves, and 8 times 45 is 360. And so we can then also on that chart overlay some square of 9 price intervals. So let's say we had a price chart, and let's just say for argument's sake that the price of a particular stock hit $10 a share. And at that $10 price level, let's just say that the trend abruptly changes. And let's just say that the price starts to trend higher. So knowing that that $10 price level was a critical pivot point, we can start to apply some lines on the chart. We're going to take the $10 price point. We're going to take the square root of that. So the root of 10 is 3.162. We're going to add 1 to that. That gives me 4.162. I'm going to take 4.162 and I'm going to square it. That gives me $17.32. So what this means is over the scope of 3.162 price bars, let's call it 3 price bars in round figures, over 3 price bars, the price of that stock has gone from $10 to $17.32. So that's a net gain of $7.32. I can now draw a line on the chart. So from $10, I'm going to extend my line up to the $17.32 level, but I'm going to slope that line so that I go from 10 to 17.32 in 3 price bars. Once I get that line on the chart, that is what Gann referred to as his 1-by-1 Gann fan line. You can apply other lines, the 1-by-2, the 1-by-3, the 1-by-4, the 1-by-8. So let's say I wanted to do a 1-by-2. I'm going to move the price not $7.32. I'm going to move it double that, $14.64 in those same 3 price bars. So that line is going to have a steeper slope. And then once I lay that on there, I turn my attention to the 1-by-3, the 1-by-4, the 1-by-8. Now, that's a lot of work if you're doing it with a pencil and a straight edge. And as I said at the outset, there's a lot of software designers that have created algorithms that come complete in a lot of financial software platforms. You just have to be certain that what the software designer has done follows this methodology. There are software platforms that will apply these lines, but they do it slightly different. So where did I learn to do this particular mathematical approach? The answer is courtesy of a gentleman called Daniel Ferreira. If you look around online, you might find his book, W.D. Gann for the Active Trader. And it is a little bit expensive to buy, but if you can find it, he does have a chapter in there where he talks about how to apply these fan lines on these 360 degree increments from the square of 9. Up until 2022, I always had a chapter in my Financial Astrology Almanac where I went through these same very examples. I don't have that chapter in the 2023 or 2024 version because it's not necessarily a predictive tool. It is more a tool that tells you the prevailing direction of the trend, and it kind of gives you, insight into overhead resistance and support. So not purely an astrology tool per se, and that's why I don't include that chapter anymore. But if you have old back copies of my almanac, you'll be able to read that chapter and see how the Ferreira mathematics actually work. Now, what I'm going to do for the duration of this video is very quickly steer you through some examples. You may want to watch this video, over and over again and pause it to take a look at the numbers and see what I've done. So on all of the charts that I'm about to show you, I've done two things. I've identified a critical start point, be it a low or a high, and I have applied the Gann fan lines. I've also applied from that critical start point the various increments of the square of 9. And what I've done is I have told the software, after it's gone one revolution around the square of 9, 360 degrees, I've told it to take it and apply successive 360 degree revolutions and just keep building on the price values. And I'm going to use those price values then as some sort of an indication of support or resistance. So S&P 500, the critical start point I took as the October 2023 swing low. And now remember, I'm using the Optima software. So what I have to do in Optima is taking that price low point, I have to manually calculate the coordinates then for my 1x1 Gann fan line. And so by using my mouse in the Optima software, I can position that 1x1 line precisely on whatever coordinates I have calculated in terms of price bars and price movement. Once I get that fixed in place, the software drops all of the other lines into place for me, the 2x1, the 3x1, the 4x1, the 8x1. And once I go through the calculations using the square of 9, once I'm able to figure out the price that corresponds to one time around the square of 9, 360 degrees, I'm able to adjust with my mouse that 360 degree point. Once I get that point on the chart and use my mouse to fix it, then the software drops into place all of the other price increments, and I just tell it how many repetitions I want to go through. And so in the case of the S&P 500, from those October lows, from that pivot point, we came rocketing higher, and we followed the Gann 8x1 line right up until the latter part of December. Then the price faded a little bit, and it found support at a 180 degree increment of the square of 9, and then away we went again. And notice that on the second push higher, we followed the same general slope of that 8x1 fan line. So where are we now? Well, we have come through, let's count them here, from the October lows. We have come through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 complete revolutions of the square of 9. We are now into our 7th revolution. We are halfway through it, and you can see that here we are halfway through it, 180 degrees, and that is exactly where the S&P 500 is finding overhead resistance. Could we move higher? I don't see why we couldn't. And if we do move higher towards the 360 degree increment, That's going to take that S&P above 5,000. And there's people on Wall Street that are calling for, 5,100, 5,200. Absolutely, we could get there, providing that Wall Street wants to keep pushing these magnificent large cap tech stocks. But yeah, don't think that these markets are poised for any kind of a crash. There's certainly all kinds of people on YouTube calling for doom and gloom and the end of the world. There is room for this market to push a little bit higher yet if it wants to. All right, Nasdaq, same thing. My start point, October lows. And mathematically, I figured out the coordinates for the Gann 1x1 line. Once I used the software to pinpoint the coordinates for that, everything else dropped into place. The other lines appeared on the chart. And some of them I removed because they weren't really relevant. So you can see that from the October lows, we came firing on all cylinders, moving higher. We followed the Gann 1x1 line. It made one complete revolution around the square of 9, and that is exactly where we hit overhead resistance, right there. And the market struggled for a number of trading sessions, and then it finally decided it was going to push higher. Notice that as it pushed higher, it followed the same slope as the 1x1 line, and then it eventually hit midway through the second revolution. It hit a little bit of overhead resistance. What else was going on there? The sun was passing the natal midheaven point on the 1971 Nasdaq first trade horoscope wheel. So now you see there is a connection between astrology events and the square of 9 and the price action on a chart. And that is what I think Gann realized back in the 30s. And that's what allowed him to make the money that he did. And he probably had trouble expressing it very succinctly because back in those days, openly talking about astrology could get you in a little bit of trouble. And he kind of had to veil everything very carefully. And that's why so much of his writing, people say it's undecipherable, I don't understand it. Well, he did that for a reason, and that was to prevent him from getting into trouble with the authorities. So after that 180-degree increment, Nasdaq fell down, but then it started to go again. And again, look at the slope that it follows on the next push higher. It follows that 1x1 general trend direction. So where are we now? Well, we are certainly over halfway through our second revolution around the square of 9. Could we go higher? Yeah, I don't see why not. We're kind of running into some overhead resistance here at 315 degrees, which is kind of an oddball number. I would not be surprised to see it push a little bit higher. And in some of my recent newsletters, I laid out the case for Nasdaq testing the 18,000 level. All right, gold futures. Again, my start point, those October 2023 lows. And you can see that from that low pivot point, the price of gold followed the 8x1 Gann fan line. After one complete revolution of the square of 9, it hit a point of overhead resistance. It fell down. It found support at the Gann 2x1 line. And then it started to rally. And it generally followed the slope of that 2x1 line. In early December, it took a bit of a flying leap, and it tried to really get rocking here. It hit overhead resistance at the 4x1 line, but more importantly, sun was passing the natal Mars point of the 1974 gold futures first trade horoscope. and price could not overcome. And it fell back, and it fell all the way back down to the Gann 2x1 line, found some support, started to rally again, following the same slope as the 2x1 line. Where did it run out of steam? Midway through the second revolution around the square of 9. And then it faded, and it found support at that 360-degree level. But more importantly, what else was happening? Sun was passing the natal ascendant point on the 1974 gold futures first trade horoscope. So there's, again, the connection between astrology and this mathematical treatment. So seasonally, we're into a pretty lackluster part of the calendar year for gold. I wouldn't be surprised to see it kind of drift along here. The next period of seasonal strength is going to occur later this summer. There's an astrological reason for that. A lot of gold pundits are saying, if gold gets down to that $1,900 an ounce mark, it's a screaming buy. Well, where are they getting that $1,900 price point? Right there. That is halfway through one revolution of the square of 9 from that October low starting point. So yeah, if we get down there, probably a good place to think about buying it. And there will be some astrological event that will manifest as price gets down to that level. So that's kind of what I'm watching for gold to do. But, in the meantime, if it wants to keep pushing higher due to global turmoil or what have you, overhead resistance right now is $2,087. And if it can get through there, who knows? It could rocket dramatically higher up into the $2,200 per ounce mark, which would take it to the second revolution of 360 degrees around the square of 9. Okay, for all of you Tesla Elon Musk fans out there, I've taken a look at Tesla from the April 2023 low point, and you can see that coming out of there, it rocketed higher, and it followed a Gann 1x1 line, and it worked its way higher. Where did it run out of steam? Well, from that April low, it went one revolution around the square of 9. It went another revolution around the square of 9, and it made it halfway around again. And that's where it hit overhead resistance that it could not penetrate. Where did it fall back down to? Right back down to very nearly that 360-degree point. But more importantly, 1x2 Gann fan line found some support. And it's common to see price temporarily dip for a trading session or two below some of these lines, but it recovered and it started to rally again, generally following the slope of that 1x2 line. And notice that at the 90-degree Gann square of 9 level, that's where it hit overhead resistance, fell back down, followed the same general slope of the 1x2 line, and this time it failed at the 360-degree iteration, fell down pretty hard, found support at the underlying 360-degree square of 9 point, started to rally again. Notice that the slope it generally followed was similar to that 1x2 Gann fan line. So there's your slope. Where did it hit resistance and fail again? 360 degrees. So you see these numbers now that you're calculating and applying, they kind of give you a roadmap, and you'll be slightly amazed at how often the price fails at these resistance or support points that are calculated using the square of 9. So where have we tumbled down to? Well, we came right back down to the 360-degree increment. That couldn't contain it. Price fell even further. So where are we now? We're down around that 180-degree level. Could we even tumble further? Yep, don't see why not. Things are not looking particularly rosy for the team at Tesla. Now, taking a much broader picture here from the April 2022 highs, you can see that the trend really is all over the place on Tesla. We have these big drawdowns, these counter trend rallies, big drawdowns, counter trend rallies. We're in the middle of a big drawdown right now. Where could we go? I wouldn't be surprised to see $135, and that would be a price level as calculated by the square of 9, and that would place me then right on a Gann 1x2 descending line, and that might then set the stage for a counter trend rally of some sort. So just watch some of these critical levels, and you might be surprised at the story and the hints that you can glean from these price levels. Here's our good friend Nvidia, the poster child for artificial intelligence. I was reading some comments on a chat room this morning where somebody had gone short Nvidia at $600 and was now in a bit of a state of panic. I don't think I'd be shorting this thing right now, because here's where I think we're going to see this thing go: 686, and I wouldn't want to be short. So there's plenty of room to move, and this is all based on extending these lines from the October 2022 low point for Nvidia, and basically the price trajectory has more or less followed a Gann 1x2 line. And you know what, if we do want to touch 686, could we fall down and find support down at something like 628 or maybe 573 again? Sure. But for now, I don't think I would want to be short. This thing has got some momentum behind it, and it could do some damage to people that want to be short. Okay, WTI crude. October 2023 marked a high point, and I've projected some lines downwards. And basically, you can see from that high point, the price fell following the 1x1 slope, and then there was a counter trend rally, and basically it followed the 1x4 slope downwards, and it eventually found support here at a 270-degree increment of the square of 9. But more importantly, what else was happening at that point? The moon was passing the natal Neptune point in the 1983 first trade horoscope chart for crude. And so there's your overlap again between astrology and the square of 9 mathematics. We've had a counter trend rally, which took us just a little bit above the 180-degree increment as calculated from this high starting point. And now we seem to be working our way down again. Where could we go? Hard to say. We might just grind our way lower following this general slope of the 1x8 line here. Because remember, the U.S. is basically self-sufficient for the most part in oil and gas. Neighbors to the north here in Canada, yeah, we're only too happy to export our oil to our neighbor south of the border. So really all of this Suez Canal geopolitics with the Houthi rebels and the shipping companies hasn't really been enough to cause oil to rocket higher and test $100 or anything crazy like that. So the story is going to be told to you in terms of these Gann lines and some of the square of 9 increments. Let's continue on here with crude very briefly. From the December 2023 low, as I said, there has been this counter trend rally, and we are now fading that rally. But I want you to notice that from that low in late December. We rallied pretty hard following a Gann, what is it here? The 1x4 line that marked our slope. And why did it fail? Why couldn't it get much above $78.60? You had Mars passing your natal mid-heaven point on the crude oil first trade horoscope. And that was enough to halt the rally, turn the trend, and now we've fallen right back down. We're actually at something very unusual here. It's a Gann 1x16 fan line, which I seldom, if ever, use in any of my work, but there it is. So oil is in a bit of a weird kind of space here right now. Not quite sure what it wants to do. If it wants to rally higher, look for it to maybe follow this 1x16 line higher. Maybe look for it to get back to the $77 level. Who knows? We'll see. But again, these lines and these square of 9 levels, they give you a roadmap and they help you make sense of it all. So just pay attention to that going forward. Okay, shifting into the world of agriculture, here's corn. Starting point was the May 2022 highs. I've projected the fan lines going downwards. I've added the square of 9 increments, and you can see that we fall, we have a counter trend rally, we fall, we rally, we fall, we rally, but broadly we are contained by this Gann fan line coming down here. More recently, this Gann line coming down here is marking the general slope of the downtrend. Just pay attention to the number of 360-degree increments that have unfolded since that May 2022 high, and I would not be surprised if one of these increments of 360 degrees actually marks the low and a turning point for things like corn. You can see that right down here we're at 270 degrees, so we're getting very close to the 360 degree next increment. And yeah, I would not be surprised to see corn hit that incremental level and then stage a counter trend rally. Soybeans, same thing. I'm using the June 2022 highs as a start point. So we came down, generally following the slope of a couple of these Gann lines, counter trend rally, and then we followed the 1x1 line down, and then we had a counter trend rally, and then we followed the 1x3 for a little bit. There is some astrology that I've overlaid here at some of these spikes. So, for example, in the middle of 2023, we had a couple successive runs at a 360-degree incremental level. Both failed. Why? In the first case, Mars was passing the natal mid-heaven point on the Soybeans 1936 first trade horoscope. In the second situation, Moon was passing the natal ascendant point on that 1936 first trade horoscope. So there's your connection between astrology and some of these square of 9 incremental levels. And, where are we right here and right now? Well, just count the number of iterations of the square of 9 we've worked our way through since that high in June of 2022. We've come through 1, 2, 3. We're working on our fourth one. We are poised to be halfway through that fourth revolution at a price of 11.46. Could we get there? I don't see why not. But then at some point, at one of these Gann square of 9 levels, we're going to have a counter trend rally, and it is going to be contained and constrained then by the overhead resistance points provided by these Gann fan lines extended downwards. All right, this has gone on longer than I had hoped. There's a lot of material. You may want to watch this video over and over again. But once you get comfortable applying these things, and once you make sure that your software is working for you, you will have yet another very valuable tool at your fingertips. And then once you see how to overlay some astrology events on top of these price charts, you'll see that there is a connection between the astrology and a lot of these Gann fan lines and the square of 9 incremental levels. And so in the 2024 Almanac, I talk about all of the various commodities. I give you what I think are some of the astrological aspects and events that are key to 2024. So you can use them on your price charts with the Gann square of 9 incremental levels and the Gann fan lines. And you can take your trading and investing to a whole new level of insight. And I'm not going to keep you any longer. Visit me at investingsuccess.ca, and we will talk very, very soon. So thank you kindly for your patience. This was a longer video than I had hoped, but good luck applying Gann square of 9 and Gann fan lines. Have a wonderful day. Take care.